You're watching the Urban Debate. Now, it's been 1 year since Section 377 was struck down. September 6, 2018 marks 1 year of that historic judgment by our Supreme Court, when a 5-judge bench read down the provisions of Section 377 decriminalizing consensual same-sex relations. Bermuda Now, as a channel, stood with this fight for equality for every single citizen. But the question we have to ask 1 year later, and we have to remember that it was just one step. We have to ask what has changed. Have we created a more open society? Have we created a society where same-sex couples can rent homes, can buy homes, can be open about their relationships? We need to move towards a system where same-sex couples can adopt, can get married, can buy insurance policies for each other, can buy health insurance policies for each other, will be called as next of kin in a hospital or on a will. All these rights right now are not available for same-sex couples in India. But there's something more basic we have to work on. Stopping the bullying, for example, the harassment, the discrimination. Changing the way each of us thinks and changing the way the people around us think as well. I'm opening up the phone lines today as we celebrate 1 year of freedom for the LGBTQI people, our brothers and sisters in our country, and what we can do to make this better. And I would love for you to share your experiences and advice as well. Joining me on this conversation right now, Harish Iyer, Chant, both of whom are getting ready to perform. And Sushant is, well, not joining the show as Sushant, but as Rani Kohinoor, who has made strides in media as a performer. And we're so proud of Rani. Konika Roy is with us as well. She's an activist and a catalyst at the Godrej India Culture Lab. Vasu Primlani is with us. She's a comic. And we have Vinay Aarote, who is an activist and a journalist with the Mumbai Mirror and my colleague within the group. I welcome all of you. Thank you so much for being part of this conversation. Vinay, let's start with you. We had this conversation before the show started. You believe that things have changed, things have gotten better. Where do you see that change?
I think after the verdict, it has bridged that gap between the society to understand LGBT individuals.
Yes.
Also, it has also developed a sense of security in families, in workspaces, that the government supports you, the government recognizes you. So tomorrow, if my parents feel that I might need some legal help, they know that the government now supports. We are no more called as criminals.
Yes.
And also, it has started conversations in workspaces, because I believe that is the focus right now, inclusion at workspaces. Not just that, but multiple other similar conversations have been initiated after the verdict. And also
Could this be a Mumbai, Delhi, Bangalore thing? Or is it happening across the country?
Not just metro cities, I guess, but also small towns as well. Because I think this has had a strong foothold there, because for them it'll be easier to come out. For them it'll be easy to talk in public about their rights, talk about their identities. Metro cities, of course, it has affected slightly, but I think it has majorly helped some other areas as well.
Monica, I know the Culture Lab does a lot of work in this area. What have you discovered in the last 1 year?
So, yeah, I'm here representing the Culture Lab today, but I've also worked at the Humsafar Trust for the past 3 years. And when the judgment came out, actually, it was at your show that my mom was here. So for me, I think this was, you know, one of those moments when the community kind of, my personal journey as well, like people, you know, opened up to this idea. So right after the judgment, we had so many people reaching out for support. So I agree with Vinay in that, you know, people are more and more open about this. And we had people from really small towns reaching out saying, not that, you know, things are great for them, but that, you know, this is not going right and this is what needs to change for me.
Well, we've got pictures of your childhood up on the screen right now. These are pictures of you. But in your journey, if you don't mind sharing some of it with our audience, what was life like pre-judgment and post-judgment for you and your parents?
I think pre-judgment, it was really all about their difficulty with understanding why I'm doing this work, but post-judgment, it was euphoria pride for them. Not just for them, for my extended family, for my grandparents, for example, they watched the show
Yes.
and they were so proud. My granddad is 90 and he shared this information with his building friends and everything. So it was a really lovely moment for me as well, kind of coming out at that level and having that kind of support. So yeah, it's been lovely to have this.
I must tell you,
Judgment.
Kanika, that this is something that I've complained about personally for over a year, that we've not had enough women,
Yeah.
from the community talk about this.
Yeah.
And the ones that I've spoken to, at least, have always said that there is this sort of heavy lie of, I just don't have a boyfriend yet, as opposed to, telling extended family that you're gay.
Yeah.
It's as simple as that. Has that changed for you?
Definitely. I think I'm very, very blessed to have a family who, of course, they live in the UK, so their context is very different.
Yes.
My extended family lives there, but they were very, very supportive. In fact, before I came out officially to my parents, they had already spoken to my family, asking them to be supportive of me, providing resources. So I'm just very,
You've
very
never had
lucky.
to, yes.
Yeah. But I know that this isn't the case for everyone, and I think that's why it's important that I talk about my story, because exactly as you said, there aren't enough people, enough women talking about it.
Well, Vasu's also here. Vasu is one of the few women who've talked about her sexual orientation and her personal life. And you've been a role model, Vasu. Have you had more young people get in touch with you on Instagram and on other mediums over the last 1 year saying, I want to come out, can you help me? Could you give me advice? So do you find more people, wanting to take that big step?
People, they haven't increased, no. People would come up to me after my shows and talk about their sexuality and how in the closet they are and how unsafe they feel. So I can't say that has increased. If anything, I mean, even though we have like legal legs of legitimacy behind alternative sexualities in India, however, to bring about absolute societal change, it takes more than the law. It takes a cultural shift in the mindset and recognizing homosexuality or queer alternative sexualities as a human rights issue. I think largely, culturally, India is going in the other direction, which is in contradistinction to this law being repealed.
Yes, I just want to bring in the two guests who haven't spoken yet, and that's Sushant and Harish Iyer. Sushant, you first. I mean, for one, we have more performances. You yourself have been performing in mainstream media. It doesn't get more mainstream than singing in drag at one, at one of those talent competitions. Have you experienced change? And all of the amazing work that you've done, the sort of widespread sort of celebration of your talent, do you see that as a massive change?
Well, first of all, Faye, let me say happy independence and let me wave the rainbow flag. And this is such a deja vu moment because, of course, Harish and I were here just last year, and
yes.
it just feels like yesterday. I think there's been an absolutely wonderful response to the community from allies, which is who are a very important part of us going forward in terms of getting our rights. And I think that the Pride Week that just happened in Feb, the Pride March, it saw a lot more straight people coming out to support, us at the LGBTQIA plus community, as well as I saw a lot of people not wearing masks anymore. There were a lot of people who used to walk and, walk the march, the Pride March with masks on, and you were there in
yes.
looking as beautiful as ever in your rainbow sari, I remember. And, you were there, there were so many people from, our friends and our family members and just people who didn't even know anybody at the Pride March but joined in because
yes.
they thought that, this is an important sort of thing to support. And the rights of other people, other human beings are as important as their own. I think that's a very beautiful change that has occurred, and I think there's a this is just the start. As I keep saying, we have to of course sensitize the audiences way more. And I think that the content that we're producing and creating nowadays, thanks to OTT platforms, as an artist I would say this, that I've had the opportunity to represent this country several times internationally and my community back home in India. And I just got back from Stockholm and London, where I performed in front of about 500,000 people, which is something that I just hold so close to my heart. And I think that people even back here have to sort of promote so much more talent and so many more artists. In terms, I'm going to speak strictly in terms of how the pop culture has changed over the past 1 year, because you have people like Harish and you have other people on the panel that will give you more insight on the other aspects. But as an artist, I feel very, very comfortable performing in this country as well as outside, representing this country outside. I think it's a very beautiful, beautiful environment that is being created, and not to say that to treat us any different and as if we've come from Mars or whatever, and lay red carpets, as I always say, although it's preferable. Red carpets I always like, but I think that we need to normalize. We need to normalize LGBTQIA content and people and characters. Yes. I think that is the start of change, and that has happened, that is happening. Of course, we should let go of there are some people that are fringe people that are, trying to put us down and all that. I think we have to rise above the hate and rise above all of these, the negativity around, and sort of bring out the positivity and the change.
Absolutely. In fact, Harish, before I come to you, I have someone on the phone line and I want to take as many calls as we can get. Professor Raj Rao has called in from Pune. Professor Rao, go ahead. Good evening. You have to mute your television set in the background, but go ahead. Professor Rao?
Hi, Faye.
Yes.
I'm sorry, I can't share the enthusiasm and the optimism of the guests on your panel. There are a couple of things I want to point out.
Yes, go ahead, please.
There are a couple of things I want to point out. I would like to refer to two films. The film Aligarh, and the other is a film by O'Neill called I Am.
Yes.
Both these films show that even after the 2009 judgment, when the Delhi High Court read down 377, police harassment did not change, right?
Yes.
The police didn't even seem to be aware of the fact that 377 had been read down in 2009. And, the gay bashing, the blackmailing, extortion, all that continued.
Yes.
The other thing I want to say is that last year's decision was a judicial decision, not a legislative one.
Yes.
And there have been people in the government, I don't want to name them, who have pointed out, influential people in the present government who have pointed out that you can always have a larger bench that overturns the judgment of a smaller bench. So just as the two-bench judgment of 2013 was, overruled by last year's 5-judge bench, there can be a 7-judge bench that again brings 377 back. So all this has been said by people.
Yes. Right, I understand, and let me just stay on the phone line, because I've had this conversation a couple of times with some legal experts who said that the Supreme Court would be reluctant. You'd have to place a very good reason why it would review its own constitutional bench decision, right?
Yeah. So the judgment actually is based on 2 other judgments that have come out before this, which is on the right to privacy as well, and NALSA judgment. So actually it would be more than a 9-judge bench that has ruled on this. So it would be very, very difficult to overturn such a judgment, because it is it's making constitutional amendments, which is very, very difficult. So I would say that at least for the next generation we are good, unless something really bad is happening with the country, which I don't think it is right now. A lot of companies are supporting the community. We have so much legal backing right now. I don't think that is possible
That's
at this
possible.
moment. Yeah.
All right. I want to take the question now to Harish Iyer. Harish, you've been working, and if we, set aside, we are optimistic, but if we go into the slightly sort of darker part of this conversation, Harish has been working with people who still struggle with suicide, with abuse, with, perhaps things that we don't like to talk about. And we should. So members of the LGBTQI community actually are more likely to suffer from issues of mental health and more likely to find themselves feeling suicidal. Harish, if we consider the bullying and the harassment, that hasn't gone down, has it?
That hasn't gone down, and people need to understand that coming out is a whole process. Why we would want more people to come out. What really has happened after this verdict is many people have come out and they've put the onus of acceptance on the parents, where they have not, where the parents are not completely equipped to deal with their coming out. So, so there have been cases of dejection when the parents have not accepted them. There have been cases where children have been bullied in schools, bullied in colleges, because yes, it is their responsibility, the responsibility of the outside world to also accept the changes and accept people as they are. But for some people, the idea of homosexuality or their friends being belonging to the LGBTIQ community is quite alien. So it becomes extremely important that we have a robust mechanism where we educate people, educate the masses, have sensitivity education in schools and colleges, have sensitivity education, anti-bullying laws, which also incorporate LGBTIQ people. Also, we need to also keep in mind that all the other laws, there's a lot about intersectionality that we need to speak about as well. There are a lot of other laws which interplay with Section 377. In the sense, what if I'm in Kashmir and I'm in a logjam where I can't really go out? So me being gay or me being straight doesn't really help over there. A gay man is not free over there. What if I'm in Assam and my name is not there in an RC? You know, and I could be a queer man in Assam and my name is not there in an RC. So while we look at issues just from a LGBT lens, and yes, it is a positive verdict. Yes, it sends a very positive wave, but there's a lot of work that needs to be done. And I think that the life of minorities the struggle for minorities is a lifelong one. So we cannot at any point rest on our laurels and say that we have arrived somewhere. So, so I'm afraid we will have to keep speaking, we'll have to keep doing these things, and we will have to have more people speak about it, more people understand it, and that's how they will educate themselves, and that's how we will minimize the stigma. We can't eradicate it, but we'll minimize it to a large extent.
All right, I will, give a quick warning to Sushant that I am going to ask him to sing something for us in celebration of the one-year anniversary at the end of the show. So he has some time to think about what that is going to be. But I'm opening up the phone lines right now to anyone who wants to talk to the members of the panel, because these are all people who not only have been through the process of coming out to their families and to the general public, but they've also helped others. So if you're at home right now and you have a question, if you're a parent, you are a child, you're a teenager, you're in your 40s, it doesn't matter, pick up the phone and call us. Phone number is at the bottom of your screen. Shamarao is on the phone line from Bangalore. Go ahead.
Yeah, here, Madam Faye, what I wish to tell is that these people should be accommodated in professions which are interactive with the public at large.
Okay.
For example, acting, for example, journalism. Recently, Kairali channel appointed such a person in their channel work to present on Chandrayaan. So where they come into the visible professions of the society at large, they obviously are accepted for behind the back professions also, back end work also. That is where we have to do a lot of work. Now, over the 1 year, I don't know Mirror now has any profession LGBT worker already there with you or not. But this is where the visible professional acceptance is where it will start, is what I feel.
Yes, Shamara, that's a very good suggestion, and thank you for calling us. Our phone lines are open to more people. Mirana has always been, completely friendly to members of the LGBTQI community. In fact, we had a very strong member of our team who helped us with all of this, who then decided to work somewhere else. We won't go down that road, but I do want to point out this, and I'll come to you about making safe spaces. The truth is that research tells us that any random collection of people, it's likely that 7 to 10% are members of the LGBTQI community. They're just not talking about it, which means that it's not so much about, actively going and hiring someone as creating a space where the people who are already present feel comfortable talking about this aspect of their life. So it's likely that a lot of places where people feel that there's nobody from the community, they probably are, they're just not talking about it, right, Kanika?
Yeah, I think if you look at after the judgment, I think about 70 plus companies came out in support of the LGBT community, and that was a start. But after that, we've also had 2 LGBT job fairs where about over 200 people applied just to our company, Godrej. So it's really surprising, but also very heartening to see how much is happening in this field. And I'm just hoping that more and more such companies come out and start making safe spaces, because it's not just as you said, it's not just about hiring newer LGBT people who are out, but also making safe spaces within there. And it's quite easy. Yeah. There are so many companies.
You work in a safe space as well. That makes a difference, doesn't it?
It makes a very big difference, because for me, I had quit my initial jobs only because the workspaces weren't safe enough for me. I've been very proud to work with Mumbai Mirror. Adding to Konika, yes, there have been a lot of change. We had 2 job fairs for the first time in India, and it's also not about encouraging hiring, it's firstly creating safe spaces, because there could have been a lot of companies, for namesake, hiring LGBT people, but are you actually looking at the ground to have employees who are inclusive enough to make sure that they go through certain amount of training to try and understand LGBT individuals? But yes, definitely, as pointed out by Mr. Rao as well, the community needs to be upfront, needs to be included in all the mainstream job opportunities that we could get.
Yes, and of course there's a lot to be done in that area, and like Harish was pointing out, it has to be, and also like Vasu was pointing out, and with the person who called us as well. So this is important to remember. The Supreme Court said very clearly that it's no longer a criminal act to be homosexual or to not do what they called natural sex, which is really such a Christian sort of British idea. It's not even an Indian idea. But the government of the day was instructed to write anti-discriminatory laws, because the Supreme Court said that we should not, discriminate anymore. But the truth is, we've not written those laws. Exactly. So that has actually not translated on the ground, and that's a big gap. Because when we, and Vasu, I'll take the question to you, the whole movement against sexual harassment in the workplace actually happened when strict laws were brought in that were anti-harassment, when we had the Vishaka Committee guidelines. We need that committee guidelines to be expanded again to include discrimination, and to include discrimination against the LGBTQI community as well, Vasu. We need to urge the government to write out these laws.
Right. So when I do corporate training, you're talking about if there is discrimination, fine, it's not illegal, but how legal is it? When Mr. Rao was saying that, we need to be more public, or more front-facing occupations, Mr. Rao, they already are. People in journalism, in Bollywood, who are of alternative sexualities, as you said, they don't feel safe enough to talk about it. So there has to be a backing, a legal backing of safety, so that if one person is not feeling safe at the workplace, what recourse do they have? Then they have to have legal recourse that the HR department can then implement. So it's not subject to the vagaries of management, but it is an objective safeguard across the board.
Absolutely. In fact, Mrs. Nigitha Thomar has called us. She's the principal at the Tagore International School. She understands it. She tells us it's the only school that's celebrated today. Wow. That is just so cool. Well, first of all, ma'am, thank you for calling us. Tell us what happened in the school today and how does the school support the members of the community?
Thank you so much, Faye. Actually, we've been on the Red FM channel for the last 1 week because we are working in association with NAS Foundation to create awareness at school level. So a lot of our children go for presentations to different schools to sensitize students on these areas. And we had we thought 6th September was a landmark judgment. So we had to have a celebration of that nature. We invited members of the LGBTQI community to school who are doing well in their different spheres. We asked them to come and speak to the children, and we had a drag performance. We had a professor from a university who's come out in the open about his sexual orientation. So our students are very sensitized to this, and we've been doing a campaign called the Breaking Barriers since 2013. And the children have been participating in the Gay Pride Parade ever since then. So our children have been supporting the community through and through, even when we didn't know what the judgment would be eventually. But last year, we celebrated with the community as much as they would have celebrated the landmark judgment.
Well,
and today, it was a beautiful event with everybody coming together and children getting to know that this is a human rights, a campaign. It is not
Let's do a round of applause.
At all.
Let's do a round of applause for the Tagore International School. I think that's absolutely fantastic. But I do want to understand this. Do you have ma'am, do you have parents who call saying that we don't want our children exposed to this sort of thing? I mean, a drag performance in a school is quite, progressive. But are there people who are worried about or who are, who call you and saying that, no, we're not comfortable?
We sent out a circular to parents telling them that we would like to initiate something like this. If anybody had any issues and they would not give consent, we would not involve those kids.
Okay.
So we did initially have resistance from some of them, but there are few parents out there who are very progressive in their outlook, and they understand that their children belong to a world which perhaps we've not even witnessed. You see, so they were very keen that the children participate in this. So we started off with very few numbers, but now the campaign is full-fledged. We don't have parents who come in and even object to it, because I think now they're all on board and they understand, because the sensitization has been to such a level that even we have children who've come out also in the past and spoken about their sexual orientations, and the school has supported them through and through, gone and spoken to the families, because sometimes, one parent agrees, the other has an issue. So as a school, I think we've reached another level of sensitization, but our whole mission is to take the campaign forward to an extent where we are able to sensitize other schools and get them on board as well, because it's not about us, it's about all of us together.
You're going to make me cry and ruin my makeup. But the best part about panels like this is that it's not only the women who will ruin their makeup with crying. Harish and Sushant both have their hands up. Harish, go ahead. You first.
I think I have interacted with students of Tagore International, and once I remember I got this call from a 8th standard class student. And in the beginning, I was hesitant. So I asked him again and again if he was 8th standard, or did he mean like he was in 12th standard or something like that. Then I had to actually clean my ears and to accept the fact that it was actually an 8th standard boy who called up and who asked me for an interview for his Breaking Barriers magazine. From Tagore International, and he knew all the questions right, he knew everything right, and this school stands as a model for every other school in this college, in this country, which actually even colleges sometimes shy away from speaking about this. So it's so important that we use Tagore International as a model and use them as an example and propagate everywhere. So it's wonderful what these students have done as well. And I've interacted with these students. Some students have called me up. They've come out to me, and they didn't have the hesitance in even speaking to someone like that, you know. So it's beautiful. That confidence just blossoms when they find acceptance.
Sushant?
I have to also, I second Harish because I have interacted with Tagore International, and in fact the drag performance she was talking about, they had actually called me, but I'm in Mumbai, so I couldn't make it to Delhi. But I know for a fact that they create such a conducive environment for the child to blossom to its full optimum. And I think that to its optimum, and you know, that is what the first institution is, the family, and then it's the school for a child. I think, you know, the school plays a very important role in a child's personality building. And I think, you know, there are other you know, sort of like we have the Lalit Hotel, which we're sitting at right now, which actually holds the drag queen story hour for children to kind of sensitize them as to, you know, we read normal story books for children from the ages of 3 to 13. You know, and then they're from different schools, and you know, whether it's the SSC board, ICSE board, the international board, because we believe that, you know, you have to sensitize them from a very young age, because otherwise they get conditioned into, you know, I mean, believing that the conversations they hear, usually the majority of the conversations might not be very you know, LGBTQI friendly. And so therefore there are teachers, principals like this this lady, and that create this environment. And I think that's, you know, hats off to her, and you know, really a big salute to people like her that, you know, kind of believe in equality.
And since Sushant spoke about the Lalit group, there's another beautiful thing. I mean, besides drag shows, the Lalit, every Lalit hotel has got, you know, you have male, female, and you have got a all-gender restroom everywhere.
Yes.
So I mean, the basic question for different people is, where do I go and pee when I have to pee? And that's a universal need. So you have that. So Keshav Suri, who was also one of the petitioners in this historic judgment, has ensured that it doesn't only end with lip service, but also inculcating all these values. And I remember I was at a panel at one of the Lalit hotels in Delhi, and while the conversation was happening itself, somebody just got up and said that it's good to speak about these things, about inclusion and other things, but do you guys have a gender-neutral toilet that a trans person can go? And Keshav was there in that panel. He winked at some people from the stage itself, and his staff got what he wanted to do. And by the time we were out for lunch, we saw people taking measurements, and within a week we had a gender-neutral toilet set up over there. If our governments worked that fast, and if they had that kind of intent, then India would be a very different place to live in.
Absolutely, that's really true. And I want to ask you this question, Vinay, because we've talked about what school was like for you, and it was traumatic because there was what we call ragging, which is really harassment and bullying. But to hear that the school can be this different, what does that mean for you?
I don't have words to express what I just heard about Tagore International School. Yeah. I think this is what we were rooting for. This is the kind of sensitization that we need, as Harish rightly mentioned. For a person, when you come out, it's family first, and then it's an educational institute. And I believe now, having schools like Tagore International, I hope there won't be any kids like me or many others who would not undergo bully, which will mentally affect them in future. But I think
you know,
it's
so Tagore, I mean, just the name tells you. It's a Tagore International School. This is not one of the ICSE schools. It's certainly not one of the state syllabus schools, and it's definitely not a government school, which is where perhaps the outreach and the education is most necessary. And it's not just, so it's one thing to actually create a space where children are comfortable, but teachers need to be counseled, parents need to be spoken to, you know, the non-teaching staff, needs to be spoken to. How much work's left there? Have we even scratched the surface?
No, I think definitely. I think what happens also is that once you have that, you have to have counseling facilities. So there is just, it is a snowball effect. But also, I think those are things that we have just been waiting for no reason, right?
Yes.
I mean, these are things that have to have been there in schools.
Yes.
And there's just even more reason to do that now. So I'm really happy to hear about Tagore International. In fact, we also did a similar thing with Bombay International School, actually. So there were 5th grade kids who had done a project, and they had asked me such intelligent questions which I've not had adults ask me.
Right.
So, you know, things are changing, but again, it was an international school. We do have, you know, some NGOs doing this kind of thing, but I would love to see, you know, more schools take this up on their own.
Yes, Sushant has his hand up, and I also want to point out that we've had organizations like the RSS come out and say that they don't want sex education in school. It's against culture. That's a danger. That's going backwards as well. Sushant, go ahead.
But you know, but there are a lot of schools. In fact, my alma mater, till the 10th grade, also has a counseling department. We also have workshops. In fact, they've invited us to speak also. And even the Mumbai University, the psychology department of the Mumbai University also has workshops. They have sensitization programs, not only for the students and their parents, but they also have, and I must give them credit for this, they also have it for the staff. You know, that works at Mumbai University. I think it's you know, we should also celebrate sometimes the efforts that they also make. It wasn't built. You can't, you know, it's a process. I think they're making an effort, and it's you know, it is tough for them also to kind of because the HOD or the head of department will, you know, I mean, we've been students, and I can say for a fact that, you know, I've seen a lot of the government-led schools also that make an effort. And the Mumbai University, I sort of, my testimonial is for the Mumbai University, that they do a great job. In fact, they send their students also post as part of their internship to go to LGBTQIA plus friendly workspaces to understand what is inclusion and diversity as part of their curriculum. So I think that is it, you know, they're making an effort. Even in schools, they tell them about, they teach them even in Arya Vidya Mandir, you know, in Mumbai, it's an ICSE school, you know, with a Delhi board. I think they are also doing a very great job. And you know, and then there must be a lot of other schools. There's also, of course, international schools have it in their curriculum, but they have a lot of workshops that are happening. We should,
I also want to ask,
credit.
Okay, I want to ask Harish to just go over what Swikar does. Swikar is an association of parents, you know, whose children have come out to them as LGBTQ, and it's a support group, and they support other parents. And I think it's among the most beautiful stories in the country right now, because we don't have enough of a support system for families as well. So Harish, if you could just go over contact details of Swikar for anyone who's listening or who's watching who might need Swikar's help. Go ahead.
If you want to reach Swikar, we are on Facebook. It is Swikar the Rainbow Parents. And it's a group, possibly I'm the only child over there because I'm one of the founding members. But all three. Oh, Sushant is saying I could be a father at this age. Okay.
We are working towards getting that also in the legislation. You know.
Okay. Don't mind his diversion. So, he's just getting into his Rani mode right now. So
all right, so yes.
I think Swikar the Rainbow Parents is the group that you need to reach out to.
Yes.
And it's a group by parents for parents, because many a times when children come out of the closet, parents go into a closet, and it becomes extremely important that parents find their support groups. And all our three of us, Sushant's parents, my parents, and Koni's parents, all of them are in the group. So you'll find the parents of these panelists on the group as well. And if you have any kind of challenges in getting your parents accept the fact that you are LGBTIQ, and give them time, give them effort, just as you come out of the closet, they get into a closet the moment you come out. So give them the space and get them introduced to Swikar parents, and they would be in a position to speak to, rather than any other child speaking to. When mothers usually complain to other mothers, saying that my child is like this and my child is like that. And when the other mother says, yeah, I know my child was also like that, but I did this, I accepted my child and the child changed, then it adds that value in that child, you know. So I think that's a very good initiative that's there.
And the best part about Sweekar is that, usually, parents confide more in their mothers or for whatever reason. I think there are, an equal number of fathers now,
yes,
which is a very good thing to see in the group. I think for initially it was just my father, and then now there are so many more men coming forward to support their children. And because at the end of the day, that's your child.
Yes.
You have to start with accepting your child first if you want anybody else to accept your child. So I think that's a beautiful message.
And that's why the firsts are very important, and we should never forget the first. Like Sushant's father, Pradeep Divgikar, who has been on our show in Mirror Now as well.
And Harish's mother.
My mother.
Yes.
So I think
everyone's moms and dads have been on the show.
Chitra has been there. So I think this is extremely important that we remember.
And the beautiful part was at the Pride March, there were these group of parents who were standing there saying, "Jaise bhi hai achhe, ye hamare bacche." I mean, it brought tears to my eyes. It was the most beautiful thing I saw that day. It's so wonderful to have parents say that and to have other parents hear them say it. Rupesh Kumar is on the phone line from Delhi. Rupesh, go ahead.
Yeah, ma'am.
Good evening.
Ma'am, I used to study in Darjeeling district.
Yes.
And so out there, ma'am, all the schools had such an environment that we never felt any different from each other, okay?
Okay.
Ma'am, so when I came to Delhi after a few years,
yes,
here the environment was such that, ma'am, they used to say that, okay, these things are different, those things are different. In Darjeeling, the environment was such that if you are Hindu, Muslim, either religious or any other situation, we just felt that it was a part of our life and part of our curriculum.
Yes.
Either celebrating Christmas or Good Friday or even Diwali. We never felt any different. And it was same for girls or boys. In our school, for example, if there was a basketball boys team, there was a basketball girls team.
Yes.
And it was same for any other sports and all. And every activity that was happening in the school or in the town, it was same for everybody. But when I came to Delhi, suddenly I realized that the environment here was totally different. I mean, when you talk about equality and all, actually it needs to be taught from our childhood.
Yes.
Because when I was in Darjeeling, we thought that it was part of our life, and I always thought that everybody is equal and all. It's just normal thing.
Yes, absolutely. So it's really that, the more we teach this from childhood, if we put it in the foundation, it will grow. Vasu, here's a question. We've had conversations on this show about discrimination in housing, for example, where it's difficult for members of the LGBTQI community to rent a home, even in a city like Mumbai, not even to talk about what happens in Tier 2 India and smaller cities. Do you think there's an improvement there in some way? Because there used to be a point where people said, "Nahi, ye illegal hai, isliye nahi allow karenge." So abhi no, it's not illegal anymore. So is there a change there? Have you heard of a difference, or have you witnessed some change?
So they can't say that anymore, that this is the reason why we're rejecting your application. At the same time, they're not exactly psyched to have a same-sex couple. You have to understand there's a background and there's a history to India. Housing in colonies and in flats and apartments in Mumbai, across India as well. Consider when sex is not encouraged between heterosexual couples, how would India encourage the LGBTQI community, knowing that this is the bastion of their discrimination?
Yeah.
So India has a lot of growing up to do, and I'm very glad to hear that Darjeeling normalizes equality. And for the rest of India, for the most part, when they have normalized discrimination, when they have normalized feeling bad about sex or that it's dirty, then how can they give those rights to something that's even stranger than heterosexual sex?
Right. So we've nearly run out of time, and before we do, I want to hand this over okay, so that's a photograph on the screen of the latest Pride. I was at Pride as well in a rainbow sari, which I was very proud of. But I want to hand this over to Sushant. Sushant, it is Freedom Day. This is another thing I want to point out. You don't have to actually be gay to march Pride. You could just go because A, it's a lot of fun, and B, because you want to support, you know, everyone. You believe that love is love, and you want to put that message out. So, Chant, I'll give the floor to you. Is there something you can sing for us tonight?
Wait, before that, you need to come out as heterosexual now.
I don't need to come out as anything.
Wait,
I believe that love is love, and whoever you love is your
Harish
choice.
is too funny. Harish is too funny.
Go on, Sushant. The floor is yours.
Absolutely. Harish is, you know. Or, what do you want me to sing something?
Yes, please.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. हम होंगे कामयाब, हम होंगे कामयाब, हम होंगे कामयाब एक दिन। हो मन में है विश्वास, पूरा है विश्वास, हम होंगे कामयाब एक दिन। होगी शांति चारों ओर, होगी शांति चारों ओर, होगी शांति चारों ओर एक दिन। हो मन में है विश्वास, पूरा है विश्वास, हम होंगे कामयाब एक दिन।
That was absolutely beautiful, Sushant. Thank you so much. And that is true. We shall overcome and we will be successful.
Thank you.
I want to thank our panelists. Happy Freedom Day to everyone, not just the members of the community, but all of us. We have to push for a country where everyone has the right to love whoever they want to love, to live however they want to live, to marry, to adopt, to live and grow old together in pride. Quick break. We'll be back on the other side.